Going on, everybody? Welcome in Fantasy Alarm live stream. That's right, NFL DFS. Looking at the watch list that we posted on Fantasy Alarm yesterday, quarterback coach, running back coach, all the coaches are sitting up there right now. And what we got to do is we got to figure out who we're going to start looking at and who we're going to kind of cut and not do it. So, John, give me your initial thoughts here. John and Pemba, everybody. John, you and I haven't done a live stream in a little while today.
Yeah,
so
it's been a little bit.
I miss you. They keep strapping me in with this James Grande character, and that's never fun.
Yeah, well, you get me behind the camera, producing, chiming in from above.
You got to go with your reliable guys there. In any event, we're going to give James a chance to produce for us here. So, hi, James. How are you? Don't speak because you need to focus. John, give me your initial thoughts here. Week 3 coming in. Maybe some initial thoughts as to what went down in week 2, what people might overreact to, what people might not overreact to, not enough paying attention to. Just some initial thoughts. And then we'll just go position by position, talk about some guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some people that I was flat out wrong with, I guess you can say. I wasn't sure Philip Lindsay was going to be able to repeat his week 1 performance. He did. I was skeptical about Patrick Mahomes going on the road in Pittsburgh. Well, he went on through 6 touchdowns, so I guess I kind of have to believe that maybe he is as good as people think he was. I wasn't really high on him in season long, but again, proving me wrong there. You see the Saints after the week 1 that they had. Everybody's expecting them to put up a ton of points on Cleveland. That didn't happen. Ryan Fitzpatrick is still throwing touchdowns. I think still right now throwing more touchdown passes. So yeah, there was a lot of surprises. I still don't really have a pulse, I think, 2 weeks in on what I can expect heading into week 3.
Yeah, some interesting stuff there. Like, it's funny, you mentioned Patrick Mahomes. In the playbook, we had Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. I said build your GPP around this, lineups around this stack. Now we look at it, and I'm looking at DraftKings, and it's like Aaron Rodgers number 1 at 7,100. Number 2 in there is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Now the question is are we gonna go back to that well? Because one of the things I like to look at when I talk about some of my GPP lineups is I like to look at those over-unders. And last week, the over-under for Pittsburgh, Kansas City was 53.5. Now I look at this week, and it's like Kansas City at San Francisco, that's 56.5. And I'm wondering, with everybody on the Kansas City Chiefs right now and riding that train, do you take the San Francisco 49ers like the contrarian stack? Because last week it worked for me. Everybody was on Pittsburgh. Not enough people were on Kansas City. So we have that. We've got the Atlanta-New Orleans game. That's another big one. I feel like just based on, looking at the point spreads, looking at the over-unders and some of the matchups, this could be one of those weeks where the pay lines get really kind of crazy on us.
Yeah, you mentioned it, like you said, right now it's 56.5 over in San Francisco, KC. The Saints Atlanta's at 53. I think that's going to be an easy pivot maybe if you think everybody's going to be on, KC. After New Orleans let everybody down last week, maybe you can kind of go back to that as well. And when I say New Orleans let everybody down, it's really just Drew Brees. Alvin Kamara didn't put up the 40 points, but he still had a decent day, and Thomas had a good game. So, could potentially pivot off of that game and go to New Orleans, Atlanta. I'm not really on San Francisco as much as I would have been on Pittsburgh just because of the weapons there. I believe more in Roethlisberger and Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown than I do, Garoppolo with Greg Kittle and Pierre Garçon. Is that really the combo we're really going to hitch our wagon to? For me, right, who knows?
I don't know. The Chiefs have given up an average of 100.5 yards to the tight end position. They look terrible.
That's true.
In the secondary there. Conversely, San Francisco's middle linebacking situation and secondary are atrocious too. I feel like, I feel like the sucker play is the game stack here. I think that's the sucker play.
That's probably true. I just look at the offensive weapons. You look at Kansas City, I know, they face Phillip Rivers in San Diego, and they have a pretty formidable passing offense over there. And then, to me, I just don't think San Francisco really matches up to those two teams that they've faced so far. And then the fact that San Francisco is going to be on the road, in Kansas City, I think, I get the high point spread. I get a lot of people being on maybe this game, but I think I'm not really as high on San Francisco in this shootout type matchup that everybody's sort of expecting.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to wait and see. I have a sneaking suspicion Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Breida, George Kittle is the stack I'm looking at over
Yeah.
there, and maybe thinking about ignoring the wide receivers. We'll have to wait and see. That's why it's a watch list. We started on Tuesday. We updated throughout the week. We talk about it here on the live stream. John does the quarterbacks coach. Tom Vecchio does the running backs. Colby Conway does the wide receivers. James Grande does the tight ends. And then Dan Malin caps it off with the defenses. So I like to take a look at who I've got on the watch list early on. Then I match it up with who they have in the coaches. And I take a look at that and see which guys I'm looking at the most. So let's go position by position here. Let's talk quarterbacks. As always, the question is do you want to pay up at the position? Because obviously Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes are guys you want to pay up for. Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Ryan. Guys that I kind of like looking at their price points there and thinking 5,700.
Yeah, Matt Ryan's very cheap, I think, on this slate, given the matchup against New Orleans, and he's at home. Again, you have to sort of wonder, I guess, maybe about the receiving weapons. Obviously, Julio Jones, who I think is pretty underpriced comparatively to the rest of the receiving group.
Very much so.
And I know there's a Q tag next to his name right now after apparently missing practice with a calf injury. But if he suits up, 7,900. I know we're talking quarterbacks, but that's a top target there for Matt Ryan. But after that, I mean, what is it? It's Austin Hooper. It's Mohamed Sanu. Calvin Ridley kind of touchdown pass, but those weapons aren't really that exciting either. It's throw the ball 20 times to Julio. Hope he comes down with a couple touchdown passes. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, how Ryan performs. I like Cam Newton actually a lot this week. It's a matchup where I think he's priced down just $6,000 on DraftKings. I know that the Bengals have played pretty well, but they've also given up some points. And Newton's a guy that doesn't need to throw; he can run, which is what we like. And regardless of his targets, he's never really had a great receiving group. So it's not like you're losing Greg Olsen. Sure, minor setback, but he threw a touchdown. I think it was Torrey Smith last week. Jarius Wright's catching balls, and Christian McCaffrey's still very much in play. If we're looking middle tier, I kind of like, as you mentioned, Ryan, but I also think that Cam Newton and maybe a Carson Wentz returning is in play as well.
Should be an interesting one, to say the least. How about this one? I'm going to like a little deep dive here. And this, I kind of went on a rant on Sirius XM about John Harbaugh and the way he's running the Ravens. And I look at Joe Flacco going up against Denver. Now, Denver's not they've got a good pass rush. They've got Chris Harris in the secondary. It's an interesting defensive scheme that they've got going on here. But you've got Crabtree, you've got John Brown. He's starting to utilize his tight ends a little bit more, even in the the red zone.
Yep.
And then you've got Alex Collins and Javorius Allen, both who can catch passes out of the flat. Would you go crazy and throw in Joe Flacco, especially if Harbaugh's going to have this dude throwing 40 to 50 times a game again?
Yeah, and I mean, if Flacco's in the QB coach this week, he's my top value play. You mentioned Crabtree and John Brown, but Willie Snead's even finding value in that offense as well. And I mentioned that last week, we saw how bad Derek Carr was in week 1. The Rams defense obviously had a lot to do with that. But then he follows it up in week 2 by completing 90.6% of his passes, 29 of 32 against Denver. And we were talking about Flacco's averaging almost 23 DraftKings points a week, priced all the way down to 5,400, I think I saw him at. To me, I think this is just a really good spot for Flacco, which is surprising. I think I saw a stat that the 300 game he had was the first one he had since like 2016 or something like that. So not known for throwing, but we're getting that elite Joe Flacco that everybody's always questioning.
Really? Did you just use elite and Joe Flacco in the same sentence there?
Is he elite? I don't know. That's the question.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say no.
But the last 2 weeks he's been one of the top scoring quarterbacks in DFS. So.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's all about the coach. And if the coach is telling you to throw, it's like Andy Reid in Kansas City. Screw you, Kareem Hunt. I got Patrick Mahomes who can sling the rock 35, 40 times if I want him to, and he's got the weaponry there. So Flacco, an interesting guy to look at there. I like the Cam Newton call. I like it a lot better than people talking to me about Andy Dalton. Holy cow.
Well, there's just a lot of good numbers recently coming out about Andy Dalton. I had him in a waiver wire article I wrote for Fantasy Alarm. And, the numbers with the new coordinator, he's got like 33 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Good completion rating. I mean, I agree with you a little bit. He does the offensive weapons there aren't aside from AJ Green, who we threw 3 touchdowns passes to in the first half. Last week there's a Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Joe Mixon's hurt, so now we're going back to Gio Bernard. Yeah, it's not exciting, but he's doing it. He's getting the job done. So until he proves me otherwise, I think he's a guy you have to consider.
Red Rocket or Red Rifle? Better nickname.
Red Rifle is his nickname, but I know you're a fan of the Red Rocket.
Why am I a fan of the Red Rocket?
You can check my Twitter timeline for that.
I said it on the show today. I did. I couldn't even hold back from it. I was like, because you're not the only person who posted to me that his nickname is the Red Rifle.
Yeah.
But like I said today on the show, I like saying Red Rocket because it makes me think of a dog's penis, and that is my comparison to Andy Dalton more often than not.
Yeah.
All right, so there we go. Those are the quarterbacks we're looking at here. Let's move down to the running back. Now, kind of funny here. Every week we look at the running back position, and there's always a guy who you just have to lock into your cash lineups. In week 1, it was James Conner. The price was ridiculous. The scheme is fine. The matchup was really good. And you said everybody's going to be on him for the price. So if you use him in a cash game, if let's say you've got 50% of the field using him, if he goes off, well, then you keep pace. If he doesn't, at least 50% of the field is sucking balls with you also. So that was the first week. Last week it was Tevin Coleman, and the same high ownership percentage points. This week I look at it, man. If Jay Ajayi is out, everybody's going to use Corey Clement.
Yep.
Everybody.
I definitely agree with you there. I mean, the numbers last week were pretty good. 6 carries, 30 yards, but also the 5 catches is what catches me. 5 catches, 55 yards, got the points. Especially if Darren Sproles isn't able to come back either. It's really going to be the Corey Clement show. I have just like the awful pit in my stomach that like Wendell Smallwood is going to somehow vulture some sort of points from us this week as well. Because that just right? Like
trolled by Wendell Smallwood.
Yeah.
Is there anything worse?
It really isn't. But no, you're right. I think Corey Clement's going to be the guy, and 4,300 over on DraftKings is just too cheap. But that's sort of what they get, when they release a lot of these slates maybe a little bit too early, and the pricing isn't able to catch up with some of the news. And this is where you're supposed to take advantage. They want to get all those early entries into those big contests. And as a player, DFS player, you can now take advantage of some of the price points as injury news breaks later in the week. So, yeah, I like him. I think Matt Breida is another guy I feel a lot of people are going to head towards this week. In that matchup that you talk about, all those points over in that KC San Francisco game, you mentioned him a little bit earlier as part of the stack, but, people sort of waiting for him to take over. Alf Morris hasn't looked really great, and Breida had that huge touchdown run last week.
66-yarder, and he looked really good doing it too. I mean, really following his blockers, did a really nice job there. I do, yeah. I like Matt Breida a lot in this matchup. Definitely think he's going to be used. Couple other situations that I'm kind of looking at here. Dalvin Cook's a guy who I'm super on. I mean, let's face it. Vikings are 16.5-point favorites over the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo's terrible. They're absolutely terrible. And now you look at it with LaShawn McCoy hurt. And is it going to be Marcus Murphy? Is it going to be Chris Ivory? There really are no great weapons over there, whether you're a big Kelvin Benjamin truther or not. There's just not a whole lot to love. But, when you look at it from the perspective of, okay, which Vikings am I going to use? I like to lean on Dalvin Cook in this situation because you want to see you figure they're going to chew the clock up as much as possible. Cook, another non-participant in practice today, dealing with this hamstring issue. This hamstring's been bothering him since week 1. So the question is can you put your eggs into the basket of Dalvin Cook right now, or do you think he runs in the first half, Minnesota takes that lead, and then they just say, screw it, we're going to chew the clock with Latavius Murray?
So that's actually what I was going to point out. Depending on whether or not that hamstring is good enough to go on Sunday, or the fact that they just get so far ahead in this game, I think Murray is someone that you have to look at GPPs. I wouldn't build your core lineups around Latavius Murray, but a handful of lineups, maybe if you're max entering the 20, max tournaments or something like that, give a lineup or two to Latavius Murray, because he's a guy that can grind down the clock. We saw him get 11 carries in week 1 against San Francisco. We know what he can do last year as sort of the lead running back for them. And, he's a guy that can get it in the end zone too if he gets down in the red zone. So Yeah, I mean, I like obviously the matchup is really good against Buffalo. Just terrible. They're just so bad. But yeah, I'm a little questionable there with Dalvin Cook just because I worry the one about the injury and then the blowout scenario.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's again, this is why we start the watch list on Tuesday, and guys come off and get added left and right to see. A couple other names I'm looking at. I like Jordan Howard going up against Arizona. I think the
Yeah,
Cardinals are atrocious there, and Howard's a guy that they use to chew the clock. Like that's the best part about him is that even Matt Nagy, John Fox used to do it also. Matt Nagy's going to use Howard hopefully to chew the clock over there. So I like him against Arizona. And then what about how about the Drake? The Drake going up against the Oakland Raiders here in Miami. Drake looked pretty decent against the Jets, and I definitely don't think that the Oakland run defense is as strong as that of the Jets.
no, I agree with you there. And Drake was able to get in the end zone last week as well. Average 4.8 yards per carry, so he's getting it done there. I just always question the Dolphins like offensive play calling. Like if you look how they've used their running backs, and if you look how if you look how they've used their running backs in the back, like they never used Lamar Miller enough when everybody in DFS and fantasy were like, give the ball to Lamar Miller. He's clearly your best player. They rarely did it with Jai. Occasionally they would give him 20 carries and you'd be like, see, this is what he can do when you give him the work. And I feel like that's what we're getting into here with Kenyon Drake as well, where he's going to get 10, 15 at most carries, and then the yards per carry is going to be there. Maybe he'll get in the end zone. But if they would give him the 20 carries a game, let him be the workhorse, we'd be looking at a fantasy stud, I think. But I just question if we're ever going to get there. I just don't think the play calling uses them.
Adam Gase does the exact same thing John Harbaugh's doing with Alex Collins.
Mm-hmm.
It's killing me. It's killing me in my seasonal games. Killing me. All right. So, what any other running backs you're looking at?
Well, I mean, if we go at the top, it's obviously going to be super chalky. But we saw Christian McCaffrey last week catch what was it like 14 passes on 15 targets against Atlanta, and now we have Alvin Kamara, who's maybe the best, basically a wide receiver at the running back position, going against Atlanta, who just can't cover the running backs out of the backfield right now. They lost that linebacker. I'm forgetting the name. I think his last name is Jones. Very generic, I know. I think that's what it was.
I think it was Smith, actually.
Yeah, and he was like their primary coverage linebacker. He's out. We saw how much McCaffrey tore him up. Now, $9,500 is just a super high price. You can really only pay for him, and then you have to spend down elsewhere. But I mean, the upside with him has got to be tremendous in this matchup. And then I still like Christian McCaffrey. He's going to catch a ton of passes out of the backfield for the Panthers and their offense. And I'm trending towards PPR guys in DraftKings to get that full point there. And Chris Thompson is another guy I think you have to look at. He had 13 catches last week for 92 yards. Alex Smith loves just to dump it off to his running backs or, shallow passes to the tight end. So I think Thompson's another guy you have to look at. So those three guys are on my radar. I know Kamara and McCaffrey are usually pretty chalky, but, I think they're good guys to build your lineups around.
There you go. There you go. We're specifying here with DraftKings, guys. Why? Because if you're a seasonal football player and fantasy football player, you're looking to get into the DFS world. Leader in daily fantasy sports, fantasy football right now is DraftKings, and they want to buy you, actually, the Fantasy Alarm NFL full season package to give you all you need to win in both your seasonal and your daily fantasy football leagues. You got 30 features, 30 customizable tools, plus a lineup generator for daily and league sync for your seasonal leagues. Go to fantasyalarm.com/DraftKings to claim this huge offer and then see the eligibility details. That's fantasyalarm.com/DraftKings. All right, let's move it over to the wide receivers here. A lot of chalky guys out there who I really like. And, it's kind of funny. I posed this question to Jim today, and I'm curious as to your thoughts here because a lot of these top guys, they've got some warts to them where you're kind of like, I don't necessarily know if I really want to pay up. Mm-hmm. DeAndre Hopkins going up against the Giants. I'm not really that worried about the Giants, but he's going to see Janoris Jenkins on him. Odell Beckham, they don't have a shutdown cover corner for Houston at all. I mean, because Jonathan Joseph sucks. Yeah. It's like super bad, but Eli has no time to throw. The offensive line has been a disaster, and he's not giving Odell Beckham a chance to run his routes. I mean, unless they shorten up all of Odell Beckham's routes and they just have him running slants and hoping that he can break free there and pick up yards after the catch, that's a problem there also. And then like we were talking about with Julio Jones, I don't even care about the Q next to his name. What I care about is the fact is that Marshawn Lattimore is going to shadow him. Now, he got the better of Lattimore last year when the two of them squared off. They didn't play each other the first game because Lattimore was hurt. Second game, though, Julio kind of took him to school. Lattimore's a year wiser right now, but are the Saints just so bad that you kind of have to lean it? Do you like any of those three top guys?
Well, I mean, like I said before, I think Julio Jones is probably going to be maybe the highest owned receiver, in my opinion. Maybe Tyreek Hill will be up there. You know, he's the highest priced guy on DraftKings, and for good reason. He keeps on just being a freak. But yeah, Julio Jones at 7,900. I think he's probably $1,000 too cheap, right? Like he should be in that $8,000, $9,000 upward range there. I'm not worried about the matchup. We've seen everybody throw on New Orleans, really. So yeah, Julio Jones is fine for me. I think he should be in a ton of lineups at that price point. The other guys you mentioned, I'm not too worried about the offensive line in New York. If last week's performance was any indication by Houston, because Tennessee had zero offensive line as well, and for whatever reason, Houston wasn't really able to do much in that game against them defensively. So yes, the talent on the Houston defensive line is certainly there, but I question whether or not they can get the job done against the Giants. So I don't mind Beckham. We saw him have a really good week one, and a matchup that should have been even harder, right? The Jacksonville Jaguars have a great defense, and we saw Odell Beckham go for 111 yards on 11 catches. So I'm not too worried about that. I get your worries maybe with Eli, but for me, I think the matchup's okay. I'm not on Hopkins just because I don't know what's going on with Watson right now in that offense. They've seemed to be letting some people down at the top, but I think Minnesota's receivers are both in play, both priced almost exactly the same. Okay, Cousins is going to get that team to an early lead. I think Diggs and Thielen are going to have a lot to do with it. They're going to probably try to protect Cook a little bit if he's banged up. So I expect them to go through the air. That's probably the top price guys. Where are you looking at the mid-tier?
Mid-tier's kind of up in the air right now. I mean, I'm looking at a number of the players here, and it's really kind of tough. I'll look at John Brown. Mm-hmm. He's had touchdowns in each of his last two games. He seems to be a really decent target there. I'm also kind of looking at Jamison Crowder. I'm not a huge Alex Smith guy here, mm-hmm. and I feel like the short passing game kind of is his. Obviously, it's his thing. But if I'm gonna go with guys like Kittle or Kelsey at the tight end position, I'm not gonna want to go with Jordan Reed. So I'm kind of looking more towards Crowder here in that realm. So
yep.
Looking at him. How about you? I'm trying to think. I'm scrolling down. I'm like really low down.
Are you buying into the Sammy Watkins hype? Last week was a huge game for him. And, Mahomes, if he's going to sling it, that plays to the Sammy Watkins skill set there, going downfield, making plays, only 5,100. If you're talking about, how bad that 49er secondary is, I mean, you want a cheap way to get exposure into that game. It could be the route by going Sammy Watkins.
Would you consider in a GPP lineup, if you're stacking 49ers, would you go with Sammy and Tyreek?
Yeah, I don't mind the double wide receivers. I mean, my only problem really with game stacks like that is that only one can score the touchdown at a time. So I feel like you're almost limiting yourself. Like you can't have your whole lineup kind of go off at one time for touchdowns, right? Only if you stack two of the same receivers. But if you're expecting Kansas City to score 35 points, well then maybe you're expecting them both to score touchdowns, and you get it that way because touchdowns are really the key to winning GPPs. You need the points, you need the scores.
Right, but so, do you need them all at once?
No, you don't need them all at once now, but it's good to be able to have that potential to score as many touchdowns as possible. And having two receivers on the same team on the same roster, that does end up being a little bit limiting, obviously. What about Amari Cooper? Do you believe in Amari Cooper after his big week 2?
I kind of do believe a little bit in Amari Cooper. One of the things that John Gruden was saying was that he really wanted to get Cooper the ball a lot more. Now, I kind of just played a wait and see game with him last week because it doesn't matter what the coach says, could be lying to you. Yeah. So the question was do I believe it? And, is that going to be worth the, worth the cost? So, I mean, I dig it. I definitely do. What I really needed, I'm really looking for like that budget buster, that like super cheap wideout who's going to, when you look at it and you're like, that's the guy who wins the GPP. If he goes off, he's got, he's the guy.
Well, you talked about John Brown already. I think he sort of can fit that mold. He's a big play receiver, can go downfield, get touchdowns. He's not like unaccustomed to that, and he's healthy right now. So I think Flacco certainly has the arm. I also mentioned Willie Snead earlier with Joe Flacco. He's only $4,000. He's not going to be the game breaker you're looking for, but if you want to save salary, I mean, $4,000 for a guy that's getting targeted 6 or 7 times a game. He scored a touchdown, I think, in week 1. So yeah, there's some potential upside there if you believe in Joe Flacco throwing the football around the field. Pretty cheap exposure there as well.
If you believe in Joe Flacco throwing the ball downfield. It's such a hard thing to buy into. It is such a tough thing to buy into. I don't know. All right. Well, listen, you were a bit of an Andy Dalton kind of truther here. What about using a guy like John Ross? I know that Tyler Boyd was the guy who saw the targets last week in the shadow of 3 touchdowns for AJ Green. Mm-hmm. Do they go back to Ross, who caught a touchdown in week 1?
I mean, so I was a big John Ross seasonal believer. I took him late in drafts. I liked the upside, but I mean, only 2 targets in week 1. Yeah, he caught the touchdown, but 3 yards. Like, cool, but that's not gonna do anything for you. And
that's all right.
yeah. And then 1 catch on 4 targets for 8 yards in week 2. I mean, again, I get that Baltimore's a tough defense, but I mean, GPP is obviously we're not talking cash games here. If you're gonna build a bunch of lineups, if you're gonna do a Bengals stack and Andy Dalton and plus receiver, sure, throw John Ross in one of them because if he throws downfield, we saw John Ross make some pretty crazy plays during the preseason. He's got the upside to do so, but I can't really confidently make a bunch of lineups using John Ross.
No, I can't be confident using him in a bunch of lineups. Listen, again, I'm just looking for some paydowns. Give me a paydown.
Well, I mean, you can laugh a little bit, but I mean, Martavis Bryant came back, caught 4 passes on 4 targets. If you're talking, I know, but if you're talking about a guy that has big play potential, we know Martavis Bryant can do it. The fact that he was able to join the team, play the first week, and get looks in that offense, it's a little bit intriguing. He's even cheaper than John Ross, $3,400. It can kind of keep going down a little bit more. Seth Roberts, touchdown vulture. Remember him from a couple of years ago? All he did was catch touchdowns. Well, he had 3 for 43 and a score last week. Again, if you're going to try to go cheap and just hoping for, touchdowns, he's a guy that tends to get looked at in the end zone. So maybe Seth Roberts gets in the end zone again in week 3.
Annoying little son of a bitch, isn't he?
He is, right? But he does it. He gets there. There's one other guy I want to talk about real quick that I think is pretty cheap is Courtland Sutton. He's getting 5 targets and 6 targets in each of the last 2 games. Not doing anything with him really. At 45 yards in week 1, 1 of 6 targets for 9 yards in week 2. But I like the fact that he has 11 targets through 2 games. Means he's involved. They used a 2nd-round pick on him this year, and Keenum's throwing the ball too. So again, maybe a deep, super deep GPP dart. Courtland Sutton's another guy I like.
All right. Beautiful. We'll get to the tight ends in just a hot second here, but let me just let you guys know. Listen, you love your team. You want to bet on them. Where do you play? Where you know you're going to get paid? How about MyBookie? They've been in business for years. They've had great reviews online. Their mobile site's super easy to use. Guys, visit fantasyalarm.com/mybookie, MYBOOKIE. All right. Use the promo code ALARM, and MyBookie's going to match your deposit dollar for dollar. fantasyalarm.com/mybookie, promo code ALARM. You play, you win, you get paid. Easy as that. As that.
Very easy. Great site.
Oh, did you hear all the crap that went down with FanDuel and the glitch?
I heard. I'm curious to see. They said they're not going to pay, right?
They offered him $500. For those of you guys who don't know, there was some sort of a glitch in the middle of the game, and FanDuel had Denver to win at 750 to 1. And obviously it was supposed to be 7.5 to 1 or whatever. it was a glitch. Some dude bet it and hit it because obviously they just walked down the field and they kicked a field goal and they won it. Supposed to win 82K off of that bet at 750 to 1. FanDuel's not paying them. They offered him $500 and they gave him like a bunch of Giants tickets to do that. And there's a lot of uprising with this. A lot of people. I heard on today on Sirius XM, Paulie Howard from the Vegas Stats and Information Network. He was talking about it, how there's stuff written into potential mistakes like that, glitches like that. And, and Vegas is like, we don't want to, Vegas is taking the point of, if you really want us to pay this, well, then fine, you're banned. You're never going to place another bet here again.
Yeah.
But but if the ticket is the ticket, then, they have to honor it here. So this dude lawyered up and now he's suing FanDuel for his full 82K.
Yeah. So what it was is there was like a minute and 10 or something like that left in the game. And he live betted. He walked up there and made a bet for the Raiders, I think it was, or Denver, whoever it was, to win. And with a minute 10 left when they were down. And yeah, like I said, it should have been like 75 to 1 or something. And yeah, total. I mean, I understand his point of view. Obviously, he has the winning ticket and he wants his money. It's clearly a mistake,
Right.
And if a bank, I saw some analogies and I sort of agree with it a little bit. If a bank accidentally misdeposits money into your bank, you have to give it back. They take it back. No, bank error. And if there's terms and conditions, which I believe in, everything should really have terms and conditions onto it. If there's something like that says, in event of an error or something like that, it's null and void, well, you lose it out. It all depends on what FanDuel has written down. But I've heard that their little sportsbook over there has had a couple issues by now, whether it's been running out of money to pay people, and it seems that rushing to get things done before they're totally ready to be operated is not hurting them. So
could end up costing them a bunch. All right, let me hit some questions here in the chat room. Now, obviously, we try to keep this DFS centric, but nevertheless, some seasonal questions come piling in here. John, we're going to rapid fire these. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. 5 bench spots. I can't hold. This is at Real Medulla. 5 bench spots. I can't hold 2 defenses. Should I drop the Chargers and go with Miami, Carolina, or the Pats?
Miami, Carolina, or the Pats. I think I'm going to go with Carolina this week. What do you think?
I think we're going rapid fire here. Who do you like better this week, John, in a full point PPR? Not that full point PPR matters when you're talking quarterbacks, people. At Beam O'Brien wants to know Stafford or Fitzmagic.
Stafford.
All right. Give me your gut your hot take on Kerryon Johnson.
They should use him more.
At Damo DLH wants to know. They should use him more, absolutely. Will they use him more though, John?
They should.
They should. Is Ridley someone to look at in this Atlanta game?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, somebody said Kamar Aiken, thank me later. At DFS Cam 313.
I looked at him. I know what he did last week, but I don't know if I can trust a Kamar Aiken. I mean, that's what, Philadelphia, right? Yeah, they just signed Jordan Matthews today, and he's supposed to play. Jordan Matthews off the street was Carson Wentz's favorite target a couple of years ago. We'll see. I think Matthews could find his way into some things this week.
All right. At University Blue and at Let Wero want to know, both same question, Sanders or Galladay? PPR.
Galladay. Yeah.
Galladay it is. At Ed Scala says, what? No Tampa Bay offense in your DFS lineups? If I'm playing the Monday night slate, then yes, of course I'm going to get some Steelers and some Tampa Bay Buccaneers in there. But am I worried about that? No. I'm going to stick to the main slate here. Slate. At QCon PHI. So at Q Connecticut, Philadelphia. Ito Smith as a GPP punt.
Oh, yeah. I'll take that. He had 9 carries, 45 yards. I like him.
All right. Let's see. Luck or Dalton?
Luck.
Okay. All right. So there you go. Banging out those questions. Now let's get to the freaking tight ends here. Let's talk tight ends for a minute.
Travis Kelce.
Of course, Travis Kelce. And I like George Kittle too.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of them in there. It depends on. I mean, listen, I would love to get both into a lineup there, but I'll stick with either one of those guys. Anybody else you like?
I mean, I guess we have to believe Will Dissly is a thing now. Back-to-back weeks with a touchdown. I know, you don't like it. The thing for me with Dissly is that he's had, and I wrote about it in the waiver wire article, is that all of his yards are really coming on one big play. He had 42 yards in last week, but he had a 34-yard catch. He had 105 yards, but he had a 66-yard catch. But you can't take that production away from him. He's getting it. So he's boomer bust for me, but I mean, he's cheap and he's getting in the end zone. So I think you have to look at him. And Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle's questionable apparently with a hip, didn't practice today. If he's not going to play, I mean, Andrew Luck likes to use this tight end. Ebron's been productive of late in both weeks, catching a touchdown pass. A bigger role for him could be in a bigger game. So,
all right, but here's the question. This is the question with Jack Doyle out, because one of the things that they've been doing with Ebron a lot is working him out of the slot. So the question is if Jack Doyle misses the game and Ebron is moved over solely as a tight end, they start using Chester Rogers out of the slot. Does that diminish the possibilities of what Ebron's been doing? Because coming out of the slot, going up against some shrimpy slot corner while Doyle's doing his thing, does that lower the value at all or the expectations?
Well, I mean, they still use tight end pretty heavily in their offense. Doyle is the second most targeted guy on their team. So, I mean, if they have to, I understand the matchup wise, but who's going to be covering Ebron? That's still going to be a linebacker or a safety. So it's not as if, and he has the ability, he has the athleticism to be a mismatch for everybody. So I still think if no Doyle, Ebron's in play.
All right. So there you go. There you have it. I threw together a lineup as we were talking here, John. Are you ready for this piece of trash?
I'm listening.
All right. Jimmy Grapes, Breida, and Clement. Wide receivers, I've got Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, and John Brown. I got George Kittle as my tight end. Your boy Martavis Bryant as my flex play.
My boy?
He's your boy. He's
Okay.
your boy. I'm going to use him. I'm going to blame you.
Okay.
Just like any good fantasy and DFS player, John, I ask you your opinion. You tell me your thoughts. I go with your thoughts, and then I come back at you and I shame you on Twitter for making the wrong call.
It's fair.
Ownership, baby. Yep. It's all about the ownership.
I'm a comment.
I got the Vikings defense in there.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not?
I don't know. I'm asking you. How could you not?
I don't know. I'm asking you. How could you not?
I don't know. I'm thinking this is a 200+ point lineup here.
Yeah, maybe probably not, but maybe.
What do you mean probably not?
I think you should spend down for the elite Joe Flacco over Jimmy Garoppolo, and then pay up, for some other players there.
So go Flacco, pay up for Kelsey instead of Kittle?
Yeah, why not?
I don't know. I can't think of a reason why not to.
That's what I'm saying.
I have committed to your decisions.
I have portions of a lineup that I decided to make while you were talking, and it's got Flacco, Kamara, Clement, Julio Jones, and the Vikings defense with $4,700 per position remaining for a flex, a tight end, and 2 wide receivers. So
that's not bad.
So we can throw John Brown in there. He's $4,800.
Good Ravens stack. Nice work.
Watkins, 5K. What's your opinion on DraftKings of going double tight end? I like
that as long as they're getting the passes.
Yeah, so we'll go Eric Ebron and then flex for 5,300. Where we go? Great. You know what? Yeah, okay, we'll do that. So we'll go 5,300. I'll throw Tyler Lockett in there because somebody has to catch passes for Seattle, right? And now I have Joe Flacco, Kamara, Clement, Julio, John Brown, Sammy Watkins, Eric Ebron, Tyler Lockett, and the Minnesota Vikings. $0 remaining. I'm going to click enter in the Millie Maker right now, and that's entered. That's a lineup. I'm playing that lineup, so there it is.
All right, you heard it here first, guys. If John wins that $1 million, well, he's going to share it with me and James Grande because we're a part of this live stream.
I'm going to stop coming to work.
Your girlfriend's going to start talking you into like some big, pricey, expensive wedding, dude. Then you're screwed.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah, I betcha. You come into $1 million and she's ready to get a ring put on it, dude.
Changing my name and moving to Canada.
Nice. I like that. You can write for us under a pseudonym. No question.
Nice.
All right, that's going to do it here for us, guys. DFS watch list, live stream, whatever we're calling this here. Either way, it's Fantasy Alarm. We're here on the live streams Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m. Friday nights, you can catch us at 9 p.m. And then on Sundays, right before game day, 11 a.m. Eastern. So enjoy. Good luck. May all your lineups hit. May you win all your seasonal games. For John and Pemba, I'm Howard Bender. This has been the Fantasy Alarm. We'll catch you next time.